My story. I actually came to Australia in 1996, and from 96 to 2000, I went to Latrobe Uni. I did Latrobe Uni in Melbourne. I did my bachelor's, my graduate diploma, and my master's at Latrobe. From 2001 to 2008, I come from a textiles background. My dad has a fairly large textile operation back in India, and so the logical thing for me to do was that I start importing from my parents, and I try and do something what they've been doing all their life. So I started importing from them. At first I tried to wholesale, and then I tried to retail, only to get burned beyond comprehension. I racked up a loss of 450,000 in that business. So I used to import from them and then have no money to pay them. So they used to then send me money back. And then I used to pay them using their own money. So the company racked up about $450,000 in losses. And you can only imagine that my own self-esteem was rock bottom. Like it was, and it wasn't like I didn't work hard. I used to empty a 40-foot container by myself with my son sitting in a pram, and me and my wife unloading containers and trying to make it work. But I'm proud to say that I have never ever taken a dollar from the Australian government as any kind of assistance, apart from just two things. The first one was a first home owners grant, which everyone was eligible to get. So when I got my first house, I got a first home owners grant. And I got some $4,000 when my daughter was born in 2007, because at the time the Australian government gave a grant to anyone who had a child. Those are the only two things that I've ever went to the government for. I've never taken anything. They actually, because my company was making so much losses, there was no income at the time, and they even sent me a healthcare card, which I went back and returned because I just couldn't live with the fact that I was I was a low income earner. So I just went and returned, and I just said to my wife that, look, I just can't accept it. So I'm proud to say that I've never ever taken anything from the government, and I never will. It's just my own mentality, or where I come from. So from between 2008 to 2011, I worked in the textile. I actually went back because after I made all these $450,000 losses, my parents said, "Oh, come back. There's not enough market for what we do in Australia." They somehow convinced me to come back. So I sold all the stock that I could. I mean, $100 worth of stock sold for $30, and wrote down everything as losses in the company. The good thing is, I never closed the company down, which for me now was fantastic. And I'll get back to it in a second. I think Graham would understand, because Graham's an accountant. In 2010, I suffered a heart attack. I've got a stent in one of my arteries, and that was 7 years ago. I got a heart attack, and along the same time, I actually I found out that Dr. Larry Dossey, Dossey, I don't know how else to pronounce it, wrote a book called Recovering the Soul. And in his book, he said human beings are the only living species that has achieved a dubious distinction of dying or having a stroke or a heart attack on a certain day. And if you ask people what would be the primary cause of having a heart attack or a stroke, and most people would say bad diet, high cholesterol, or stress, or obesity, and all of those things are contributing factors. But at the time, I actually didn't have any one of them. But according to research, most heart attacks occur on a Monday morning because of an outpouring of stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. That's a majority of the people who have their first heart attack have them. So 90% of the world, no, 90% of the people in the world go to jobs that they hate. That's also research. And they are going to jobs that do not challenge them. They get sick thinking about going to work. And immediately after lunch on a Sunday afternoon, the anxiety and the stress of going to work on Monday morning kicks in. And come Monday morning, they drop dead of a broken heart. Just like I almost did on 25th of October 2010 at 10 past 8 a.m. I can never forget that day. So think about that. People are literally dying to go to work. And that's the kind of situation I was in, because when I was back home and working in the textile industry, my heart wasn't in it. It was just never in it. What got me going was the developments that I did for the family properties back home. So yeah, so I didn't want to stay there, so I told my family, look, I gave it my best shot. I did a lot of textile work, tried to do everything in Australia with the same company and family business. Now I'm back here, and my heart's not in there because I left my heart in Melbourne, and I basically packed everything and came back early 2012. I just came back, and the good thing was that in the 3 years that I was there, I did less of textile but more of the development, because I developed two properties which was very similar to where you demolish something and you put 4 townhouses. So over there I demolished it, and we put 4 flats on it. So it's apartments, call them apartments, but they're called flats even back home. And one was we bought a new factory for our office, and so the whole refurbishing and putting an extra floor on it, and then going to China and then sourcing all the furniture and everything, I did all of that, and that actually got me more excited than anything else. So when I said that I don't want to do textile anymore, I knew that if I ever came back to Australia, I would only do property, and I had no experience, nothing, no background in the property industry at that time. So I came here early 2012, and I just wanted to get a job and get going. So I just found a job as a contract manager for Service Stream, and they were rolling out these. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're called VEET, VEETs, which was Victorian Energy Efficiency Target Scheme, and you've got to do. So I was doing this in the commercial sector, not in the residential sector, where you go in and you replace all the lights with LEDs and all of that. So I was doing that on the commercial side and managing a team, but my heart wasn't there. So I used to do my job in the first 4 hours, and the next 4 hours I used to just sit there and research property. So yeah, so by end of 2012, I just said that I'm going to quit my job. So I sat with my wife and sent an email and resigning, and I resigned from the job. and as soon as I resigned, 2 days later, I went for a property development boot camp, and in 2013 I started my property development journey. And 1st of October 2013, I formed a construction company with another builder. So together we formed a company, and the same builder, I actually first worked with him for free on the site, on a construction site, just to get some experience. So then I told him that, look, Matt, there's no more free working. Let's just join hands together. But we've been partners ever since. So since that time, and since 2013 when I started all my everything, these are the developments that we've completed. So 9 apartments in Brisbane, 2 townhouses in Ringwood, which was a hell of a project because this was the first construction project. We bought the site, couldn't get finance for a year. The bank funded the land, but there was nothing on the land but just the permit, so we couldn't even rent it. It took us another year to find finance to build, but when we got finance, we actually built the project in 4 months, sold everything, moved on. Then 4 townhouses, 16 apartments in Fitzroy. These 12 townhouses in Eden were just about to finish. This was done a while ago. 8 apartments in Mordialloc, starting construction end of the month. Actually, first week September most probably, because we're getting a stage permit on this. And this is what's in pipeline. And no, this is not a double print or double this thing. There are actually 2 sides, and both sides have got 5 townhouses, and they're both in Mordialloc. One of them's got a 3 bedders and 2 2-bedders, then the other one's got 3 2-bedders and 2 3-bedders, and then we've got another 8 townhouses in Seaford. All this experience, everything that I went through, from my failed textile business to everything, I think to the journey so far, and the success that I've had in property in the last 4 or 5 years, if I sum everything up, I had to undergo a lot of transformation, mentally, and from the education side and from the experience side as well. So I can actually sum up my experience so far, from starting from scratch, and being in the trenches and executing these development in these 11 laws of success. And I wanted to keep them as 10 laws of success so that they were a nice round number. But how I started and what I had to go through mentally, physically, and in spirit, I don't think I can take any one of them off the list. So I had to. So I just came up with 11. So because all 11 of them are really, really important. The first one is, universe will give me only what I ask of it, and all I have to do is ask, and it is given. So there's a book by Abraham Hicks. I would recommend that anybody reads it. But this is so true. If you ask of it, it will happen. And I'll get into each one of them in a lot more detail in a second. But I'll just quickly run through all the 11 laws. The second one is, if there is no enemy within, enemy outside can do you no harm. And this has to do with our own limiting beliefs and everything that's happening on the inside, or whatever the things that we are actually carrying on as baggage while we were growing up. The world will take me at my own valuation. So if you don't value yourself, the world around you will only value you just as much as you value yourself. So if you think that I'm not good enough at something, or if I'm not very good or whatever, in whatever area, the world will take you at your valuation. So always remember that you make sure that you give yourself a good valuation, because that's what the world will take it. The fourth thing that hit me was no one's coming, and I would really want you to think about this. And as we proceed in the webinar, you'll notice that there's a lot of stuff that I'll discuss about it. Another law that I stick by is that I would rather get ahead than get even. So this industry is such that you could have a lawsuit at every corner. And you could have a fight with the builder, with the trade, with everything, with your consultants, with your lawyer, you name it, vendors, all sorts of things. So what do you want to do? You just have to make a decision that, do you want to get ahead, or do you want to get even with this guy or girl or whoever you've gone into a dispute with? So that number 6 is, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So this all has to do with waiting for the right situation, right everything, and I'll get to that in a minute. 7, 8, and 9 are all about the rest of the 11 weeks that we've got, which is follow a system, create workflows and checklists. Make sure that you've got all those things. You will be creating your own workflows. I will provide you some mind maps and checklists, but you will have to create your own workflows, and I would highly encourage everybody. And if you can't create them, then don't stress, because when you actually go and do and execute a development, you'll create a workflow, and then you'll refine it, and then you'll refine it further, and then you'll refine it even further. But you should just understand how it works. 8 is control at least one of these assets, either land. You control the land, so you already own the land. Knowledge, so if you understand how everything works, or capital. So if you control the capital, then you don't have to worry about whether or not you've got knowledge. You can actually go and hire experts and all of those things. So you got to control at least one of these assets. Number 9, control the entrance and the exit, that is the in and out of the project. And in other words, control the finance and the sales. What I mean by finance is the funding of the thing. So in property development, construction part is the easiest part. It is the easiest because you hand it over to a builder, you shift the risk from you to another builder, and the builder delivers a project. And during that project, there's not a lot that you need to do apart from organizing a few things. But everything that happens before and after around that construction is what you need to learn to control really, really well. So if you can control funding of the project and how you're going to get rid of your stock, if you've got 2 channels, so you know this is where I'm going to keep getting money, and this is where I'm going to keep disposing everything that I'm developing really fast. You can make obscene amount of money in this industry, like obscene. It's just crazy how much money you can make. And my job or my role in the development company right now is to, I've already started working on this, and this has started to become better and better. But with the sales channel, I still have to work, and there are so many things that I'm doing right now. So from next year, it's in my KPIs. So this is my own KPIs given to myself because I'm my own boss, and that is to start developing a massive sales channel. Because how good is that? That the problem is not selling the stock that you're developing. The problem is making sure that you've got a supply of units coming up on the market. So that's a good problem to have. Number 10, there are more people with money than there are people who know what to do with it. This one sentence actually came from my mentor, and he told me this in 2013. A lot of people did his mentoring. Not a lot of people got anywhere from it, but there were a couple of things that he said that just stuck with me, and one of them was that there are more people with money than there are people who know what to do with it. And that one sentence has always prompted me, has always encouraged me to go and learn more and know more than the rest of the people that I hang out with, or the rest of the investors that I work with. Because so long as I know how to do all the different ways that I can invest the money, all the different ways I can make more money, and all the different ways I can get the better return on my money, all the different ways I can save more money, then there will always be people who would want to say, Amber, can you do this for me? And I've got this insatiable desire to learn and know more, and I keep challenging myself with the things that I learn on the side. And that one sentence is actually always ticked in the background for me. And the last thing so far that I've got is the only those who risk going too far can find out how far they can go. So if you don't get out of your comfort zone, you'll never find out what you can possibly be, or what is your true potential. So you'll never be able to explore it until you risk going a little bit too far. So we'll get to that in a little bit later. But let's get back to the law number 1, which is all about this universe will give me only what I ask of it. So what happens is that each and every component that makes up our life, makes up your life experience, is drawn to you in response to the thoughts you think and the story you tell about your life. And this is happening to all of us. No one can be spared with this. Everyone's guilty of this. So I'll read that again. Each and every component that makes up your life experience is drawn to you in response to the thoughts you think and the story you tell about your life. So whatever's going on in your head, that's what's drawing all this experience to you. Everything, your money, your financial assets, your body's state of wellness, clarity, flexibility, size, shape, your work environment, how you are treated by others, your work satisfaction and reward level, and indeed the very happiness of your life experience in general is all happening because of the story that you tell yourself on a daily basis. So if you tell yourself there are no deals out there, you are not going to get any deals. If you tell yourself every day the market is tough, mate, guess what? It is tough, and that's what you're going to face every day. So you have to see what is that story that you're telling yourself. And I would encourage you at this point to have your notebooks and pens ready, and whatever these things that we come across and we discuss, I would want you to write them down. The reason is the moment you write them down, your brain gets to process it 3 times. The first time you take it in, second time you mull it in your head, and the third time it comes out by your hand on the paper. So even if you do it once, it's fine. But I want you to think about the story that you've been telling yourself about different things. It doesn't have to be just property. It could be anything, any area in your life that isn't working, and you'll find that there's an underlying story that you've been telling yourself. If you will let your dominant intention, right, be to revise and improve the content of the story you tell every day of your life, it is my absolute promise to you that your life will become that ever-improving story. And that is the law of attraction. So all I'm saying is, if you improve the story that you're telling yourself by a little bit, like a little margin or whatever, if you improve that story every day, just a little bit, and you will see that your life will become that ever-improving story. So you'll start seeing all these things coming into your life just by you telling yourself a little bit better story. Here's how it works. What we think affects our feelings, and So if we think we are not good enough or whatever, we'll start feeling a little bit lower. And those feelings would then start affecting our behavior, which would result in, I'm not good at this. I already feel bad about it. Why would I go and waste my time with that anyway? You know what I mean? And that will affect your result, because then you've just told yourself a story that you thought of. It made you feel a certain way. That changed your behavior, and that will eventually change your result. Just remember that the way this works is very simple. So you control the story that's happening in your head. I'll give you a proof for this. Have you ever been in a situation where you really wanted something and you got it? Would encourage somebody to press the hand button at this point. Or would you like me to pick somebody randomly? Hello? Nobody there? No one's going to volunteer for this? Any volunteers at all? Okay, Shane, we didn't get a chance to see you. Would you like to say something or contribute something to this? I've just unmuted you, Shane. Okay, Shane's got his hand up. Shane, you're live.
Amber, hello Amber and everyone. A few years ago, going back about 7 years, when my children were quite young, I had one girl who just started primary school and another one who was ready to go to primary school. I wanted to provide a global experience for them. I really wanted to do something, move out of the comfort zone living in Melbourne and move overseas. And my wife and I spent 6 months trying to find some overseas opportunities where we both could work. Had a lot of knockbacks, but we thought it would be good for us, get out of our comfort zone and good for the kids. And just through 6 months of hard work, we're actually both able to find some overseas work in Asia, which was a great experience for us. But I actually didn't think it would get there. I knew it would be difficult for us, but we persevered and we're both able to find something overseas. And we had 5 fantastic years bringing our kids up in Asia, back in Australia. But it was a fantastic experience and we worked hard to get there.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions regarding that experience, Shane. What were your beliefs about finding that job, or what were you thinking about your own ability or your own capability or your capacity or your skill level when you were actually trying to look for that job in the overseas market?
Amber, I was quite confident in my own ability, to actually do the job that I was looking for. I was in education at the time. What I wasn't particularly confident in was my ability to, or how I was perceived, how my abilities were being perceived. I'd been at the same employer for about 18 years prior to that, so I hadn't really had to go through the process of applying for any other work. I knew what I did. I was quite confident what I was doing was good, but I was a little bit insecure in how I might be perceived, particularly overseas, but how my abilities might be perceived.
Yeah. Okay. So you had doubts about how your abilities would be perceived, but you were confident about your abilities. Like you knew that you could handle it. You knew that you could do this.
Yes. Yeah. And I absolutely had, from a work point of view, I had huge reservations about whether or not it was the right thing to do with my family to relocate. So the social aspect, the professional aspect was fine. How I was perceived professionally was difficult, but massive reservations about whether it was the right thing to do personally.
Yeah. So professional. So my guess is that what drove you to this is your confidence in your ability that you'd be able to do it and your professional aspect to it. How did that make you feel when you were looking for these jobs?
It made the process that I was going through. I guess there's a lot of uncertainty with the I guess process wise. I was confident, but a lot of uncertainty, a really lot of uncertainty about.
So what kept you going?
The fact that I had a intrinsic belief that it was the right thing to do, that it would be a benefit for my family. And it was more the family. I knew it would be a benefit for me professionally to get out of comfort zone, but I just thought an overseas experience would be the best thing in bringing up my kids. So the ultimate driver was the long-term benefit, or short and long-term, but mainly long-term benefit that my kids might get out of it. And it's starting to really, as my kids are teenagers now, it's really starting to show that that was the case. But that was the main driver at the time.
Fantastic. And so that driver actually drove you to say, look, that intrinsic belief, it was underwritten by this intrinsic belief and the benefit professionally to you, and the overseas experience would have been great for your family. So those are the things that actually drove you. So how did you feel after achieving this outcome? So after you nailed it really well, how did you feel then?
There's a lot of uncertainty in the first 6 months, and I was really started to question whether or not it was the right thing to do, because my kids didn't settle particularly well after moving away from Australia. I found the first 3 months quite difficult and quite challenging professionally, and because of that, the family was very unsettled for a few months. But as time went on, I started to really think that it was a good thing that we did, even if things weren't happy in the short term. Whether we'd done it and it was successful, or whether we had to move back to Australia very quickly, which was always a possibility, I started to really, the longer I went through it, and I was just glad it happened. I was really glad it happened, but in the short term, it was quite difficult, but I learned a lot from it.
Yeah. All right, fantastic, Shane. Thank you for sharing this with us. I'm just going to mute you again, so I can take it over. The whole idea of sharing, of going into this, was to actually pinpoint that Shane, although was uncertain and from the social aspect, I wasn't sure whether or not he was doing the right thing, but he was actually driven by this intrinsic belief that it would be fantastic if the kids grew up in an overseas environment. It'll be a great experience for them, and for his own professional benefit, to stretch out of the comfort zone. He did all of those things. So I'll give you a negative example of the same thing, that anytime, whenever these situations come up, just give me 1 second. Yeah, so everything is driven by those thinking, feelings, and behavior. So if you look at the Shane's example here, his thinking was that, although it is all of that, but it will be professionally better or something. Although his feelings were, he was a bit scared, or he wasn't sure. There was a lot of uncertainty, which always is anytime you're doing something new. But what guided his behavior was actually his thinking that it will be. He saw the benefit in moving there, and eventually got the results from it. The negative example of something like this is that when I had a retail shop, something like that, that I ran on Bridge Road in Melbourne, very close to where the town hall is, and I flopped it really bad. That's how I racked up that kind of losses, because the rent was through the roof. This is going back in 2005, 6, and 7 maybe, and my thinking and feeling was that as soon as I got in, that this is bad, this is not going to work. And I always, all my behavior was actually driven by the fact that it is, I can't fail, I shouldn't fail, I can't let this fail. So I never actually played this game to win. I was always more scared of failing this. And so my focus on everything was based on, I shouldn't lose money here, or it shouldn't cost me more, or can I save money here by working harder, or can I do this, that. But it was never on the sale aspect. It was never on making sure that there was always traffic in my door. It was all based on, I hope I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't get caught out somewhere. So it was like I was playing the game not to lose rather than to actually win. And that guided all my focus and everything. And that's what this is all about. So anytime you achieve something, you will see that it has been driven by some sort of a benefit that you see in your thinking that translated into your into your behavior and eventually got you the results. So every thought that we think, it vibrates and it radiates a signal and it attracts a magic signal back. So in my scenario, when I was running a retail shop for textiles, I was tuned into 101.9, whereas I was trying to tune into 101.9, but I was set on 98.9. So you know what I mean? The frequency didn't match. So on my inside, I didn't want to fail rather than I wanted to win. See, I wanted to win, but the signals that I was sending out were not to fail. So there was a mismatch between what I was asking of the universe and what I was sending out as a signal. Sorry. A lot of people say, why is it taking me so long to get what I want? It is not because you do not want it enough, and it is not because you're not intelligent enough. It's not because you're not worthy enough, or the fate is against you, or someone else has already won your prize. None of that. But the reason you have not already gotten what you desire is because you are holding yourself in a vibrational holding pattern that does not match the vibration of your desire. So vibration is nothing but energy. So what it means is that you are in a different energy pattern than from the energy pattern of what you desire. So there's a mismatch between the what you think on internally and what you're actually trying to achieve. So I can motivate you and I can tell you, yes, take action tomorrow, call 10 agents and do this and do that. But internally, if you do not believe that you can do this, there's going to be a mismatch and you're not going to be able to land a project. And I'm just trying to explain this from the property point of view. And this actually applies not just to property, but a whole lot of different things. So you could temporarily, it's the same as losing weight. Somehow, a lot of people, yes, they get motivated, they watch a movie, they come back, they join the gym, and then 7 days later, they can't go to the gym anymore because somehow the internal image is different from the external. It's not in alignment, and that is why they will fail every time. Not because the gym's bad or whatever is bad, but because the internal and external images do not match. In other words, you can't create abundance from a place of lack. We use statements like, I cannot find a good deal, whereas you could say something like, I'm still looking for a good deal. I can't do numbers, or versus I can do numbers, or I'm learning to do numbers. I'll give you an example of something like this where I used to tell my kids when they were young and they used to have food on the plate and they used to walk around the house, and what do we say as parents? Don't drop it. And what happens? They drop it. So I told them that, keep your plate still or keep your plate straight. So I used to first tell them, don't drop it. But then I changed how I used to address all these little things by saying, keep your plate straight, or hold it tight. So if you think your child's swinging on a swing, for example, so instead of saying be careful otherwise you'll fall, you could say hold on tight. So their focus is actually on holding on tight rather than falling. So that's what I'm trying to explain here. So what we say to ourselves and then what we focus on changes the way our body language works, and that's the whole triangle of we get into this loop where we keep going to and fro and not getting all the results because we're not in alignment with what we think we can achieve. So why is it taking me so long to get what I want? If you stop and think about it, or if you stop and feel about it, you can identify that there is a discord between that. And gently and gradually, piece by piece, you can release your resistant thoughts, which are the only disallowing factors involved. So there's a litmus test. So every time that will happen and you manage to release that resistance, you'll feel that you'll get these indicators that you're increasing relief will be the indicator that you are releasing resistance. Just as your feelings of increased tension, anger, frustration, and so on have been your indicators that you have been adding to your resistance. So anytime you release all of these negative energy from your body, you will notice that you start becoming more calm and more peaceful. So this is law 2 and 3, which is basically about if there is no enemy within, enemy outside can do you no harm, which is all about your limited beliefs and internal critic. And the world will take me at my own valuation, which is all about my own self-image. How do we see ourselves? I would argue that the most important psychological discovery of modern times is the discovery of the self-image. By understanding our own self-image and by learning to modify it and manage it to suit our purpose, you gain incredible confidence and power. Whether we realize it or not, each of us carries within us a mental blueprint or a picture of ourselves. It may be vague or ill-defined to our conscious gaze, or it may not be consciously recognizable at all. But it is there, complete down to the last detail. And this self-image is our own conception of the sort of person I am. Things like I can't do numbers don't talk to me, construction doesn't make sense to me, I can never parallel park, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at public speaking, I'm a bowler, not a batsman. This line, I'm a bowler, not a batsman, was made by my son when he started playing cricket, and he was naturally inclined to be a good bowler. And somebody asked him one day, so what are you, a batsman or a bowler? And he just said, I'm a bowler. And because he was naturally inclined to be a better bowler, because he's tall and he can bowl a fast ball. So I told him that day that you can't say that because you haven't even tried your luck at or you haven't even tried batting as yet. So if you tell yourself that you are an all-rounder, I guarantee you'll become an all-rounder. And today my son is an all-rounder because he can bat as well as he can bowl. And should at that time he had already labeled himself as a bowler, he would have never tried his hand at batting. So these are the things that we say to ourselves. I don't understand finance, or I can't remember routes and maps. And this is my favorite line because I can't get from point A to point B without a GPS. I'm really bad with remembering different routes. So you see where I'm getting with this? Our self-image has been built up from our own beliefs about ourselves. Most of these beliefs about ourselves have unconsciously been formed from our past experiences, our successes, our failures, our humiliations, our triumphs, and the way other people have reacted to us, especially in early childhood. And when our parents shouted at us, you are useless, or you're not good enough, those things sort of stuck to us. And from all these, we mentally construct a self, an image that we see ourselves, that I'm this and I'm that, and this is me on the inside. You know, when they say, oh, I'm not that kind of person, I wouldn't do that. So that is you talking about your own self-image. So anytime somebody says, oh, I'm a people person, so they've already set up an image that they like being with people. So, or they say, look, there could be many examples where we just label ourselves as something, and then we stick to it because once an idea or a belief about ourselves goes into that picture that we think of ourselves, it becomes the truth. And as far as we personally are concerned, that's how we see ourselves. We do not question its validity at all, and we proceed to act upon it just as it was true. So the whole point of this is that we need to identify that picture that we've created about ourselves on the inside. So as we grow up, we are programmed and brainwashed and brought up a certain way. So we act and behave a certain way consistent with our inner self-image. I'll give you an example of the Korean Civil War. This is in 1950s. The Chinese Koreans successfully converted a lot of American prisoners of war to communism. And they didn't do it through a threat or torture or even promise of reward. They did it by simply changing the soldiers' self-image. What the Chinese understood was that Our behavior is a direct result of the person we believe we are. That is our self-image. Think of it like a loop. We are constantly confirming to ourselves that we are the person we think we are. But the system we use to interpret our behavior and feedback is our own self-image. It's a catch-22. So the Chinese interrupted that loop. So you might think it was a big task of reprogramming men who had been highly trained only to give their name, rank, and serial number. But the Chinese didn't do it that way. They actually did it bit by bit. So during interrogation, they persuaded the prisoner to make one or two mildly anti-American or pro-communist statements. For example, United States is not perfect. It's a mild statement. Or in a communist country, there is less unemployment and crime. So these are, on the surface, they seem harmless. But once these apparently minor statements had been extracted, the prisoners would then be asked to define exactly how the US wasn't perfect. And once the prisoners were worn down and tired, they would then be asked to sign their name on the list of reasons they had come up with. Later, the prisoner would be made to read his list in a discussion group with other prisoners. And the Chinese would then broadcast his name and list of reasons during an anti-American radio broadcast, not only to his own camp, but to all other North Korean prisoner of war camps and the rest of the American forces in South Korea as well. And suddenly, the prisoner found himself labeled as a collaborator, someone who participated in the kind of behavior that helped the enemy. So when fellow prisoners asked why he had done it, he couldn't claim he had been tortured, because he wasn't tortured. After all, he actually said those things and signed his name to them. Psychological research has shown that human beings can tolerate only a certain amount of discrepancy between their thoughts and their behavior. Like anyone unaware of the power of its own self-image, the prisoner felt that he had to justify his actions in order to maintain consistency and his own internal sense of identity. And he would say that what he had said was true. And in that moment, his self-image changed. He now believed that he was pro-communist. And his fellow prisoners reinforced the new identity by treating him differently. Because once he believed that he was pro-communist, he got treated differently by his peers. And that completed the loop. So before long, his desire to act consistently with his new self-image would drive him to collaborate with Chinese even more, and thereby further reinforcing his new self-image until he no longer even questioned if it was true. So if you look at this, the self-image controls what you can and cannot accomplish, what is difficult or easy for you, even how others respond to you, just as certainly and as a thermostat controls the temperature in your home. So all our actions, feelings, behavior, even our abilities are always consistent with our self-image. Now, note the word always here, because in short, you will act like the sort of person you conceive yourself to be. More important, you literally cannot act otherwise. So in spite of all your conscious effort or willpower, and this is why achieving something difficult just on sheer willpower is a losing battle. So we actually are like this. So when this is how we are, and we build all these limiting beliefs all around ourselves, that this is who I am, and this is all I can do, or I'm not good at something, I'm not good at public speaking, I can't talk to real estate agents, or I can't negotiate well, whatever you want to say, and you start building that wall around you, and that's how you live. Whereas that's how you should be living, this is what the peak performance looks like. So how can we change our self-image? So what we have to do is we have to tell ourselves a story that we want to experience. The good thing is that our subconscious mind can't actually tell the difference between what's real and what's not, and I'll prove that to you in a second. But let's understand this. At any given time, we are vibrating and sending out this energy in the universe. But it is either coming from what you want and desire, or what you don't want and desire. And you have the option of focusing upon what you want or the lack of it regarding every subject. Like, so you could focus on, I haven't got this or I have got this. So and you send out signals given, so for example, I send out signals given my terms and my due diligence time. I can handle a project in excess of 100 million, and I can. Not because I got 100 million in the bank, not because I've got 50 million. I haven't even got 5 million in the bank. Actually, I haven't even got 2 million in the bank in cash. I've got more in equity, but I haven't got anything. Even I don't have a lot of cash sitting there. But what I do know is my ability to be able to put these projects together, control the funding, control the sales, and then make money somehow in there. So given my due diligence and all of that, I keep sending out these signals that, you know, I can handle a project like that. So what we have to do is, when we are telling ourselves this new story, we have to watch our language. So it can either be a language of lack or it can be a language of abundance. So I can do that or I can't do that. I want to buy that or I can't afford that. I want to feel good or I don't feel good. And if I just translate all of these things straight into the property project, I can't do a 6 townhouse development. Why not? Why do you think that you can't do a 6 townhouse development? So instead of saying I can't do a 6 townhouse development, why can't you say that you can, given time and due diligence and your terms, you can execute a 6 townhouse development? So those are the things that you got to control if you want to change your self-image. So again, this is a process of changing your self-image. So happiness is related to self-image. So if you have a purpose where you can measure progress to a goal, so progress is equal to happiness. The days I don't progress, or if I'm not going further, I get depressed. And if you're making progress on a consistent basis, it will start changing your self-image, and that's guaranteed. Environment. You make little changes to the environment. Stress is a mess. Some people like city life, some like solitude. What you have to do is, what you feel is the peak performance environment for you. Association. You stop hanging out with negative people, the naysayers. You can choose to be happy. During winters, I actually tell my body that I'm going to keep it healthy, but somehow this year it didn't listen, and I felt sick just the weekend before. So you choose to be happy. Now, happiness is related to your self-image. So you form habits of happiness, or you can form habits of unhappiness. And you can consciously change these habits. So say, for example, you rush into your office, you're grumpy from the commute, and people think that you're a bear. You can change this. You can actually listen to some comedy to the way to office, and you do that for 21 days, you'll rock up smiling. You can cheer up others. When I started working on my mindset, and this is going back in 2012, I did this exercise. I actually did this exercise. So you can put 10 coins in your pocket, and every time you make someone smile, you move 1 coin to the other pocket. And by the end of the day, you should have moved all the coins to the other pocket from where you started off in the morning. Another thing you can do is that you can act as if it's already happened. So you condition yourself, fake it till you make it. This is what people say, and that's what this is. So you act. So in your mind, you become so certain of what you want has already happened that it appears real to you. So don't deprive yourself of the feelings with, when I achieve that, and then I'll be happy, or if I get that, or I wish I had that. Go and act, walk, talk like as if you already are. You already done 10 developments. And if you haven't done 10 developments, go and do numbers on 10 developments. Go and do due diligence on 10 developments, and walk and talk like a proper developer. Now, stress happens when you are focusing on your past or your future, and we give up control on the present just by simply acting out of what we want to be, and you can change any of that personality. So anything that you vividly and effectively imagine to be true, it will be accepted by your inner self-image. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between your vivid imagination and what is true, because you can have real physical reactions to imagine and real life experiences. Take an example of a horror movie. We know consciously that that's fake, but we give a real reaction to it. And or you could go over an argument in your head with somebody that you are trying to do. Now I do this all the time, and you can go over an argument and you can get all worked up about it, and your blood pressure will actually start soaring. So your behavior is controlled by what your self-image believes to be true. And your behavior automatically changes when your self-image changes. You cannot hide it. Your behavior will give it away no matter what you do. So if you think you are the best at what you do, your behavior, your way of talking, your aura, your presence, everything is going to change because you just cannot hide it. And this applies to you. And when you go and talk to agents, for example, if you watched every video in the online course, and if you've done your due diligence and numbers on different projects, and you understand how all pieces of the full property development system they work, you'll be a different person when you talk to the agent. But if you haven't done all that work and you go to him, you won't be confident in yourself, because your self-image will tell you you're in a different territory. You don't know what you're doing, but you're pretending to be someone else, and that will come across that you are pretending. One of the reasons I was able to do a no money down deal is because I was so thorough with everything that I was doing. And it was actually the third deal or the second deal of my career, which turned out to be a total no money down deal. The project was rigid. I had done so much due diligence on it and so many different scenarios on numbers and everything on it, that I knew for sure that the project had a minimum of $1 million. And what we did was we actually sold the project with plans and permit for $1.3 million in profit. And all the investors made money. I made money. Everybody in their project. There's a lady, she put in 375, came back, got a 375 back, and got 275 on top of it. So, and the reason I was able to put it together was because I was very thorough with what I was saying. Although I had very little experience, I'd only signed a project in Brisbane, and we were thinking of doing a project for the construction company, but this wasn't concrete at the time. So yeah, so that's how I did it, because people could see that I'm very thorough, and my self-image was that I am born to do this thing, although I had not done it at the time. And that's what happened. That's when the world actually took me on my own valuation. So yeah, law number 4 is no one's coming. It's a terrifying notion to accept, and it sounds like final abandonment. The idea that no one was going to rescue me from my circumstances is like an idea that I might never have accepted, but because it contradicted with my own childhood self-programming. And many of us, even grown-ups, we devise very elaborate and subtle variations to the I want my mommy theme. I want to go back to mommy theme. I came from a very close-knit family, and somehow when I wanted to come back to Australia and do property, I had a falling out with my brother. He took over the fully established 30-year-old family business, and I left home to start everything from scratch with no help whatsoever. And as soon as I came back to Australia in 2012, it hit me that, I'm going to be working in an industry which I have no clue about at the moment. My whole family tree has never worked in the property industry, and I was going to go and do all of this stuff. It did hit me that, I was alone and I was, by myself. But until I accepted that no one is coming and I'm enough, no one needs to come. So when you accept the idea that no one is coming, it is actually a very powerful moment, because it means that you are enough. No one needs to come. No one needs to help you. Not only me. I'm here to tell you that no one's coming. So you can handle your problems yourself. You are, in larger sense, appropriate to life. You can grow and get strong and generate your own happiness. Law 5 that I practice very dearly is what would I rather do, get ahead or get even? And I always choose getting ahead over getting even, because I don't want to waste my time. And I'll give you a real life example. My 9 apartments in Brisbane, my partner was 50% shareholder, I was 50% shareholder, and we both had to come up with 250,000 to settle the land just before construction. Construction loan was approved, everything was due, everything was great, and then my partner goes, I haven't got the 250. And 3 months went by, and although I was upset, but my focus was always on, I'm gonna do this project, I'm gonna complete this project. It was never on, what am I gonna do now, or everything's gonna fall to shit. It was nothing nothing like that ever crossed my mind. I wanted to lock horns with my partner, but then I realized that I can't afford to do that in the middle of the project. I've got to finish the project. So every email that I sent to him was, don't worry, Gary, we'll find a way. Don't worry, Gary, we'll find something. And I moved heaven and earth to actually find somebody who could lend money to him to do that, and I couldn't. And I tried everything. So my final resort was to actually get in touch with the builder who we had already contracted to build the project. And I said to him that, we've done everything, everything's fine. My partner's hasn't got 250,000. I've already got my 250,000, and all we have to do is pay off the land, and we've already got the loan approved. Everything is ready to go. Can you lend the project 250,000? And I told my partner that the interest is for that 250,000 is going to come out of your share because you haven't got the money. And the builder agreed. The builder said, look, I'll charge 25%. So I went back to my partner and I told him that, look, mate, that 25% on 250,000 is going to come out of your share, whether you like it or you don't like it. Sorry, I'm going to have a lozenges because my throat is drying out really bad. So he somehow within 2 weeks, Gary had 250,000 because he didn't want to pay 25% interest on it. So, but then I wanted to finish the project. I didn't want to go, point fingers and say this, that, whatever. And we finished the project. The project made close to 800K. So in this industry especially, there will be so many times where you could go and lock horns with people. But I would suggest that you always choose getting ahead rather than getting even, because getting even will cost you more money, and the only person who's going to make the most money are the lawyers who will represent the two parties. They are the only people who will make money, and you and whoever you get into dispute with are the ones who are going to be losing it, no matter whose fault it is. Okay, law number 6. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. This has to do with a lot of people who wait for the perfect timing, perfect economy, perfect resources, perfect project, perfect site, perfect circumstances, perfect opportunity. The market is, impeccable, perfect partners, perfect business. That's never going to happen. Never, ever will that ever happen. So you can forget about the ideal circumstances because they just don't exist. So all you have to do is just get started and don't wait to get started, and don't care and don't let your limitation that, if I have all of this, or if I have this experience, or if I have this knowledge, then I will start. No, just start. And you will learn whatever you don't know, you will learn along the way. So you just can't wait for that to happen. And the only way you can do that is if you take unconditional action. Now, unconditional action is related to the external side of it. So there are two things. We have an internal world. We have our thoughts, feelings, our limited beliefs, our self-image, and the story that we've been telling ourselves. That's all our internal world. And the external world is where unconditional action happens. So no matter how much I think about myself as the greatest developer, it ain't gonna happen if I don't go out and take action towards it. If I don't go out and do projects, if I don't go out and learn more, if I don't go out and find more deals. So no matter what my self-image is, if there is no action that supports it, it's not gonna do anything. But it has to be in alignment with my self-image. So my action has to be in alignment with my self-image. So if you say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, I'll be this, or let's say you say, I'm just trying to find a good example for it. So let's say I say that I'm very good, I'm the best developer or whatever, but you see me doing no developments at all. And a lot of gurus actually do that. They teach about property, but by themselves they probably don't do any projects every year. I don't know how they do that, but so there's a conflict there, and it cannot be, because that person will not be in harmony, because those are the people that people pick up as fakes. So your internal world has to be in alignment with your external world. So anytime you're not getting results, that means that there is a mismatch between your internal and external world. The only time we actually don't take action is because of fear, and the fear actually comes from the stories we are telling ourselves about the future, and which all those stories actually stem from our beliefs, our own belief system that originated in our past. So I just want you to be aware of this concept. So we are scared of what the things would happen in future. So if I was to define fear, there's false evidence appearing real, but fear is actually it's like an anticipation of pain. Fear, the definition for fear is anticipation of pain, and it comes from our belief systems, and our belief systems are formed in our past. So anytime you want to get rid of fear, you got to go back in your past and look what happened, or why do you have that self-image, or why do you have that limited belief, and you have to trace it back to a single incident that would have happened in your past. Either your mom said something to you, or your friend, you were in school, you got embarrassed, somebody told you you're not good enough, your friend smacked you for whatever reason, and that changed your self-image from that point on. And you've been carrying that for forever and ever, and living like that because of that one incident that took place sometime in your timeline, sometime in the past somewhere. So law number 7, 8, and 9, which is follow a system, control at least one. We will discuss all of these when we get to week or the following weeks. So I'll go to law number 10, which is there are more people with money than there are people who know what to do with it. And as I said, this one statement has actually driven me more than anything else to learn more, to do more courses, to do the continuous professional development, the CPD, although not required in my industry by law, but I continually do that so that I always have an edge over other people and whatever I do. Eleventh law is only those who risk going too far can find out how far they can go, and this will apply to everything that you do. I'm not saying break the law, but definitely break the rules and push the boundaries just to see how far you can go. Okay, so we have come to the end of the session, but I'm going to give you some homework, and the homework is there's an online course. If you haven't got access to it, shoot me an email at support@propertydevelopmentsystem.com.au, and I'll make sure that you have an access to it. There is a section called Do You Have What It Takes, and under that section there's a short video that talks about self-image. You don't really have to watch that video because we've discussed self-image in this session more than I have in the other section. So you don't have to do that. You got to do the goal setting workshop that's already in the online video. It's a 20-minute video that you got to watch and do your goal setting in there. I haven't gone through it, but I will go through another exercise in a second. And you got to watch this video again and pause and watch this without me coughing in because I'll take all the coughing out from here. And you got to think through each slide and everything that I'm saying. And if you got any questions, or if you got anything that you want to ask or share your experience and everything, that one-on-one call that we have together, you can discuss anything with me if you wanted to. If you don't want to discuss with me, that's also fine. I don't push anybody to open up, but you will only open up with me once we've established a rapport with each other, and you know me and you understand the kind of person I am, and I understand the kind of person you are. So watch this video again. This is part of your homework. Now, I wanted to explain you the difference between goals and outcomes. Outcomes are the results that are expected when you set small goals. Now, goals are by definition are the result or achievement towards which effort is directed. An outcome is something that follows as a result or consequence. So I'll give you an example. Your goal is to, I don't know, find 10 properties. But the outcome for that is, how would that make you feel when you've got the 10 properties? How would that make you as a person when you've got those 10 properties? So that is the outcome. So there's a goal. Now everybody does a goal setting exercise. I don't want to do the goal setting exercise because I think we are more outcome driven than goal driven. And I would want your focus to move from goal to outcome, and then you can set everything underneath. So before you do the goal setting exercise, I would recommend that you do the outcome diary. And I'll explain what that is in a second. So what I want you to do is that notebook that I asked you to get, I want you to use it as an outcome diary. And you got to set outcomes for yourself on a daily basis before going to bed. And you start off with a few well-informed outcomes, no more than 3 per day. And you can gradually build them to 7 per day. And remember, making up outcomes is a skill, and it gets easier with practice. So you might find difficult, what outcome do I want if I just want to talk to 4 agents tomorrow? How would that make you feel? How would that, what kind of person would that make you? Those are the questions that you'll have to ask yourself in order to come out with an outcome. So it's a little bit different, and it might take you might have to watch this video or this section a couple of times in order to get your head around it, but stick with me and it will get clearer. Start with where you are and build your skill one day at a time. And the possible outcome settings would include your property development journey, or your work life, your finance, health, relationship, family, personal development, or spirituality, if that's where you want to go. Choose the ones that are most motivating to you. Keep your outcomes small. If they're too big, you won't get started. Your outcomes might be about how you feel or the results you want to produce. Notice how long different kinds of outcomes take to show up. So as you start keeping a diary every day, you will notice that different kinds of outcomes will start popping up that you had never thought before. What I want you to do is notice how often that the act of choosing an outcome is enough to actually make it happen. Just be aware of the state of where you currently are, your present state, or what's going on around you, or where you are, or where you're starting from. And notice how it is different from what you would rather have. So the question that you need to answer in order to come up with your outcomes are, what would you rather have? You got to become aware of the creative tension involved in staying aware of this difference. Learn to trust your unconscious mind's ability to manifest outcomes. So these are some outcome exercise questions. So if you answer these questions, you'll be able to come up with different outcomes. So what resources do you need to get it? So if there is an outcome that you've got, you write down the resources that you need in order to become that outcome. What will happen when you get it? How will getting it benefit you? Do you want this change in any other situation? How will making this change affect other aspects of your life? Now, it doesn't have to be just property. You could do that in different scenarios. Now, the last 4 questions are slightly tricky, but they're all different. What would happen if you did make that change? Or what would happen if you didn't make that change? Or what wouldn't happen if you did make that change? And what wouldn't happen if you didn't make that change? Now, if you are lost in here, I would encourage you to join that Facebook group, and I will send an email after this so that you've got the link so you don't have to type it in. And you'll also get, in the membership area, you'll also get the PDF version of this full slideshow that you can take out or write or use it to fill out the notes and everything. So, course requirements, you've got to have your outcome diary minimum once a week, and you've got to, if you write it with your pen on your notebook, you can take a screenshot of it, or you can take a photo of it and just upload it or email it to that. just put a hashtag underneath that says Outcome Diary Week 1 with your name. Because this is a part of the course and everybody needs to do it. If you spend a considerable amount of money to do this course, I want to give you the best value that I possibly can, and I want you guys to derive the best value from this course that you possibly can. But if you start discarding these little exercises as a waste of time, you will not be able to get the most of it that you should be getting out. So I would request all of you. Now, I won't hold a gun to anyone's head if they don't do it, but I would want everybody to do that every week, at least once a week. I would recommend that you do that daily. If you don't do that daily, no problem, but at least once a week is required, so you could have all your outcomes for 1 week, and you put it in, and you write it on a piece of paper, put it in that Facebook group. Other people can comment on it. Other people can see what you're doing. and that would encourage interactions. If you're not clear on something, you can post a question there. I am there. I will answer anything that I can to my ability. Second homework is that you've got to do a weekly video log once a week. And in the weekly video log, you can talk about your outcomes if you want. You can talk about what you did, what obstacles did you face, how did you overcome them. Sorry. How did you overcome them? Do you need help with something? Any feedback on the week's class? Any shout outs that you wanted to make? And that video again has to go up with the hashtag video log week 1 your name. So I would prefer everybody to have at least 2 interactions in the group every week. If you are posting your outcome diary and you are posting your video log every week, then you don't really need another 2 posts. That's just compulsory. The other thing is, I would want you guys to create a short introduction video. We did do a small introduction when we started off, but I think some people missed out. Like Elaine hasn't been introduced. I will see if I'll stop that and I'll introduce Elaine towards the end of it. And Graham hasn't had a chance to be introduced to everybody either. So what I would encourage is that as your homework. Again, this is not compulsory, but it is part of the course requirement, and I would highly recommend that you do it. Create a short video, name age, city, where you're from, what's your occupation, any previous investment or development experience, you can talk about it, your expectations from this training. And the last thing that you must have in your video is this: what would your outcomes have to be such that when you achieve them before the end of the training, it would cause you to honestly say to yourself, that's the best training I've ever done in my life. So, read that again. What would your outcomes have to be? So your outcomes. So if you were to achieve your outcomes by the end of this training, what are those outcomes so that you can say honestly that that's the best training that I've done in my life? Okay, so this is the end of the thing, and I'm gonna give Elaine. I'm just gonna unmute Elaine and see if we can get an introduction from Elaine. Again, the mic doesn't come up. Okay. Elaine, somehow, if I unmute you. Okay. Elaine, say hello to everybody. Hello? Okay, Elaine's not here. Graham, is your mic working? Can I unmute you and you could say hello to everybody? Hello? Okay, I don't think I can get through to Elaine. Is there anybody else who would like to ask any questions, or just press that hand button so that I know and I can unmute you? Okay. Elaine, would you like me to unmute you? Hello? Elaine, can you hear me? Okay, Elaine can hear us, but Elaine's mic isn't working, so we will mute Elaine. Anybody else would like to press the hand button and have the Q&A? Otherwise, we will call it a night. Um, anybody at all? Anybody would like to give some feedback? Okay, Andre, 1 second. Okay, Andre, you are unmuted. What would you like to say?
Basically, one of the questions I had was, can you just give us a bit more of an examples of what you consider to be outcomes pertinent to this sort of exercise?
Look, the outcomes are more. Well, the outcomes are more about what you would become in the process, or how would that make you feel once you achieve something. So let's say, for example, next week you want to say you want to meet 10 different agents and talk to them about finding a good deal or whatever. I'm just giving you an example from the property side of it.
Yep.
And after you've met the 4 agents, how would that make you feel? Would that make you feel accomplished? And then you've got to write down what are the steps that you need to do, which is your goals basically, to achieve that outcome. So every week, if you achieve an outcome where you feel that you have accomplished something, or you negotiated better with the agent than you did before, that is a good outcome. That you got better at something. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So these outcomes are there to challenge you to think, and the more you find the first 3 outcomes that come to you the easiest, and share that in the group, and I'll comment on them, and I'll share some of mine in the next week as well, and then we can all discuss and learn from each other.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Okay. Anybody else would like to ask a question? Just press the hand button, and I will give the mic to you. Thank you very much, Andre.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ashley. Yes, Ashley.
Okay, this I get a bit tangential, but I was kind of curious when you said that you worked for free for that construction company. It was your first sort of experience in the Australian sort of property industry.
Yeah.
How did you approach that, and what did you do for the
I actually,
company?
it's his name's Sam Colombo. He's my business partner now, and I actually met him via a networking event, because when I didn't know anybody in the industry, all I did was just rock up at different networking events. And then somebody told me that, look, you got to meet these guys. These guys run, like in Melbourne, they had 2 property groups. One was the Moriella group, and that Moriella group was something that I used to frequent all the time. And then eventually the lady who used to run that said that, like, you take it over. Then I ran it for a few weeks, and then after that, I had just too much work to be able to continue that work. But then she introduced me to another group that happened in, I think in Carlton somewhere, and it was called the Beehive Group. And Sam had started that group with somebody else in that group, and Sam's also a very driven person. I think he was the youngest builder to register in Victoria ever. But he always worked for other developers. He built a lot of projects and everything, but never did anything on his own. So I met him, and we actually got along really well. And he's Italian. My other partner, who's a project manager, he's Russian. And I went to his house, and because I had quit my job and I wanted to do this full time. So I went to his house, and I said to him, do you need somebody to give you a hand for free? And he said, yeah. And he was building a mansion for this Asian developer in Turak at the time. And he said, come to the site. And the next day I was at site, and I started working with him. So I worked with him on the construction side, managing all his paperwork, making sure everything was going fine. And then I started learning the ropes with him of what everything was, because I didn't know anything about construction. And even now, I understand where the dollars go, and I understand how I can control these things. But I'm not a builder. My brain is more inclined towards feasibility numbers, tracking all the other stuff that happens all around construction. So he manages the construction side of the business. I manage the finance, marketing, legal, structures, how we're going to structure tax, all of that. So I offered him, and I worked with him, and then we've been together since.
So I guess the benefit to you is just immersing yourself in the environment.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
No worries at all. Okay, Andre again. Yes, Andre.
Earlier in the piece, you were talking about creating workflow sheets or processes and so forth.
Yep.
Is that something that we have to do as our own as we're going through this, or do you actually have a, I don't know?
No, you'll have the
per se
checklist.
at the end of it, or
You'll get the checklist. So if there is a process or whatever that we do, you'll get the checklist. But I don't have any process maps that I can give you as such. I explained the process using a mind map, but I don't have the actual workflow diagrams for you to follow. But I do have, but I do have checklists that you can take, and then you can create your own from it.
yeah. Excellent.
No worries at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. Anybody else would like to ask any other questions? Okay, looks like Grime's gone. Okay, great. Look, we're gonna call this a night, and if you've got any questions, I will send everybody an email just after this before I wrap it up for tonight, so you guys can go and join the Facebook group, and we can start the discussion there. Thank you very much for keeping up with my cough, and I apologize for it. Hopefully by next week, Wednesday, I'm much better than what I am today. Thanks.